if you look at the famous phrase Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, right? So like, which means Brahman alone exists, the universe is an appearance, right? So when you actually break this famous Sanskrit phrase down, then we would say that it first states Brahman alone is real, the universe is unreal, and the universe is Brahman. Mm-hmm. So this is, again, Gaudapada's perception of reality, right? As opposed to having a difference between Purusha, the pure awareness, and Prakriti, the manifest world, right? And so, and in saying that, like, there are important philosophical principles and teachings that you learn from yoga and Sankhya, which I actually think will help you understand Vedanta at a deeper level as well, because first of all, Vedanta uses a lot of Sankhyan terminology, and so then you gain this type of divine literacy and fluency from understanding this language. But getting back to my point is, when we look at Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, is that Gaudapada is, as you said, it's a different state of perception. It's not that it's an either-or scenario. It's all Brahman. And so this is why I often state, as you know and all the audience knows, is that I always say it's immanent in reality and at the same time transcends it. It's not one or the other. It's not in reality or it's transcending reality. It's because this, again, can be a bit of Abrahamic thinking too, right? It can be a little bit of either-or, as we find in Abrahamic psychology, where it's the idea of God and the universe and everything like this is it's an either-or approach. Whereas Advaita Vedanta, strictly Gaudapada's Advaita Vedanta, it transcends everything. It dissolves that separation. And so then you're operating from a place like when we look at the Taoist principle of Sha Sheng, right? When you have mutual arising. So what is first, the chicken or the egg? And the Taoists say they both arise at the same time. It's not one or the other. But there is this duplicity in life, but the duplicity is an illusion, right? So, for example, yin and yang as separate entities themselves are an illusion. When you look at the Tai Chi symbol, it's one, right? And so likewise, Shiva and Shakti, the separation between Shiva and Shakti are an illusion, right? Yeah, we could say Shiva is the ultimate Brahman, right? But Shakti is the power of that, is the power of Brahman. And so that's what this reality is, and we exist in it. And so Gaudapada is trying to, as you were saying perfectly, was that, trying to change our perception of the world. So it's not like the manifest world is here, Brahman is somewhere else. It's almost, and it's hard to think about, but we are in Brahman. So the manifest world itself is in Brahman, as Brahman, and we are expressing ourselves subjectively, in air quotes, expressing that. But it's trying to get your head around that sort of way of thinking, right? So that Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya mentality, that the universe is Brahman. But how do we, how do we have that realization, right? And that's where the text and that come in.
Yes, a lot of people find the Vedanta teachings of Vedanta, whichever school it might be, difficult is because of that perception, I think. As you mentioned, even if we are not Christian, right, but we are very familiar with the black and white thinking. Yeah. And so that in that way, we are very subtly been indoctrinated by this Christian way of thinking. Yes, we're not Christians, but the world is somewhat kind of hypnotized by that dualistic thinking. So this or that, right? If you're not stand by this, you must be stand by that. This kind of idea. But again, the teachings of Sanatana Dharma is transcending that way of thinking completely. That's why I think people find it very difficult to grasp in a correct manner. Yeah. But they misunderstand the knowledge, they misread the text, right? They misinterpret the text, and that's where a lot of these errors happened. So first of all, you're working on the perception is, I think, is everything, and that's actually the process of undoing that kind of a black and white thinking and perception is a process of studying Vedanta is almost like that, I think. For example, when I first come around to Advaita Vedanta through Ramana Maharishi, was that, so I didn't have much of knowledge of Vedanta itself, right? But I became familiar with Advaita Vedanta, yes. But once I start studying more about the Hinduism in general, I learned to be that everything, Vedanta again is a philosophy of Vedas, right? So the philosophy of Vedas come under the big, the umbrella, we call it Vedanta. We know that Anta, it means the end, right? The peak or the end, Vedas, Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, right? So the core teaching, the very important philosophical teaching of Vedas are in Vedanta. And Vedanta, we have three different schools, which is dualism, non-dualism, or qualified dualism, right? So three schools of Vedanta, and Advaita Vedanta is part of those three schools of Vedanta. And me personally, through reading a lot of Swami Nikalananda's translation of Atma Bodha and the Upanishads, had taught me a lot about just understanding comprehensive perception of seeing Vedanta. So that is, it's very important to have the big picture. I think we find it hard to have a big picture in the world, right? Because we live in so much of a world that paying so much attention to minute things, right? So that we kind of easily lose our bearings, right, of anything in our life or whatever you do, right? So we often miss out of seeing the bigger picture. But having the bigger picture have a very flexibility in seeing the world, I think, and that should apply to studying this ancient knowledge, and that helps, definitely helps with transcending the black and white thinking.
That's right. Yeah, most people are seeing the world through a pinhole. You know what I mean? So you're looking through the pinhole, and that's your perception of the world. Now, the problem with that analogy is the pinhole is where your mind is at. So, like with Gaudapada, there is no hole at all. It's just everything is gone. There's no pinhole. It's just your consciousness is completely open because you've accepted the truth that Brahman alone is real. Now, does that mean you stop going about your day? No, it doesn't mean that. But like what you originally were stating was that it's a different perception and understanding of the world as opposed to a dualistic understanding. So the problem with dualism in general is that we've kind of taken that on as the general truth. And so when we talk about sort of Gaudapada's philosophy or just Advaita Vedanta in general, or even other non-dual schools like Taoism and or say Vajrayana and Zen Buddhism, is that they're always framed through a type of dualistic scientific lens. So yeah, but this is real, right? And this experience is real. Like I see a separation between you and I, and you know, and so forth and so on. Like there's always very generic examples from the dualists of the world. But who's to say that that's real too, right? Because that again is an assumption based on a felt experience and based on an experience through the senses. Where Gaudapada again changes that, where the senses are happening in Brahman, of Brahman, and are Brahman. And so there's not like a separation. The reason why the senses are there is because you are connected to everything else. Otherwise, there would be no senses. You'd be like two bricks just running into each other with no feeling, no sensibility, no ability to even, like say, read facial cues and this and that connect us as humans and connect us with other species and the planet at large and the universe. So we have all these things because all is Brahman, right? And so the intelligence is in the world because it's Brahman itself. So it's not a matter of whether Prakriti and Purusha are separate from Gaudapada's perspective because it's all Brahman. Like it's not, again, you're looking at the world from a non-dualist perspective rather than saying, okay, it's dual. Look, I'm pissed off today. I'm having all these problems. Or I'm having this issue with this person and so forth and so on. And look, issues with people and being pissed off and this and that do arise, but they arise in Brahman. As Gaudapada would say, it's like, that's all well and good, but it's Brahman alone. It doesn't matter. Like maybe you'll exaggerate your problems or maybe you'll exaggerate your problem with that person, but it is Brahman alone. And so when you accept that, I like what Swami Nikhilananda said in his commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad. When you accept that, then that's the unshakable foundation of freedom and democracy and so forth and so on, right? And so I like that idea because, if you do take on the Advaitin teachings to the nth degree, you'll begin to understand that. It doesn't mean you'll be a blank slate. Again, that's another hypnosis that particularly Westerners will have. They think that I'm an Advaitin now, so they just sit on the side of the road and just stare into vacant space. And it's like, no, man, you didn't get the teachings. Because when you understand this, when you understand non-dualism, it's not like, again, that's an either-or approach. You're taking an either-or approach. Now I'm an Advaitin, Shanti, I sit on the side of the road, and I reject the world. That's an either-or approach. You've negated the world. Gaudapada is actually not saying that. That sort of understanding did arise in India, and some people still follow it to this day. But you got to remember Sha Sheng, mutual arising, that it's all one, actually. So when you understand these teachings, it's, as Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche said, it's a recognition of the ultimate truth. Once you've recognized it, then it's just a process of a stability in that. So some people don't have the stability. They lack the stability. This is why people can have an awakening but can remain assholes, right? So they become spiritual assholes. So you need that stability as you continue to walk on the path. So, but if you haven't had the recognition, you haven't had the recognition, right? It's still black and white, and you live in that sort of dualistic world. And so the process for us, or the recognition, is to understand the world from a non-dual perspective. And the non-dual perspective of the Advaitins is that Brahman alone is real.